Hello and welcome to the Asian Game. I'm your host, Scott McIntyre. And would you believe that we're already through match day one of this AFC Asian Cup? So to help me look back on the first few days of action, I'm joined by my regular co-host, Paul Williams, and a favourite of ours here from ESPN. It's a warm welcome back to Gabe Tan. Gabe, how are you?
Good, guys. Thank you. And always great to be on. Thanks for having me. I'm sure we are all enjoying the Asian Cup so far, and I'm sure we're all pretty tired as well, but still a long way to go. So hopefully you guys are keeping well as well.
That's right. I was going to say burning the midnight oil, but then I realised I don't know actually what the hell midnight oil is and if anyone burns it and where indeed that expression came from. We'll look into that. Paul, how are things down in Australia?
Things are well. Midnight Oil is a band here, as you would know, a very famous band from Australia.
I don't think they were burning that band. That would be real.
I don't think anyone's burnt the band, but they are a very famous band. But we should investigate as to what that means.
That's it. It's a task for next week. First of all, though, I think it's been a brilliant tournament. So let's just jump into Gabe. First of all, your overall impressions. You know, when you go to these expanded tournaments, there's always a question. Is the quality diluted or not? But I think, bar maybe a game or two, I think it's been a really high level, and we've seen some of the smaller nations push some of the so-called bigger nations quite well. What's been your general impression so far?
Yeah, I think you're right, Scott. I think it's been a really good tournament so far. I think in recent like just at the last Asian Cup, we always hear it's almost becoming a cliche now where the gap is closing, the standard is closing, the level is closing. Sometimes I still feel it's being thrown about too easily. It's just like, yes, it is closing, but I think so far from what we've seen, and you're right in the sense that there probably have been 2 or 3 real games where there was a real distinct gulf in class, and apart from that. Even score lines that were like we're probably going to talk about Japan 4, Vietnam 2. On paper, that looks like high scoring encounter, but that was a close game as well, or at least for much of it, it was a really tight encounter. I think a team like Hong Kong as well, coming up against stronger opposition, giving a really good account of themselves. I think Tajikistan as well, one team that really gave a really good fight. So all in all, I think that, like you said, that it has been a great spectacle so far, not just in the terms of quality we've seen, but also in terms of the contest we've seen.
Paul, coming to you with the same thing. I mean, if there were going to be the lopsided kind of scorelines, this would be it, where you've got the top seed up against the lower seeds. But we haven't seen any of those. In tournaments past, we have seen quite a few, thrashings, to be honest. So I think it's been very competitive overall. What have you made of things?
I agree. And I think it probably puts to bed the debate around whether expansion to 24 teams was going to dilute the competition and impact the quality of the competition. I think we saw last time out in 2019 as well, and especially this time around, I think there is enough quality to not dilute the competition. We're seeing some great contests, as you said, where the so-called smaller nations are really taking it to, the bigger nations. We'll get onto it in a little bit as well. But Indonesia, I think, ranked 140 something against Iraq, who ranked about 60, and they took it to them. The result 3-1 might look like an easy victory, but it was anything but for Iraq. So I think, as I agree with both of you, I think it's been a great start to the tournament, and not just from the playing side. I think, and I know you're skeptical on some of these as well, Scott, but I think the crowds have been fantastic and surprising in a lot of cases too. And we had 82,000 at the opener.
The official numbers, Paul, have been very impressive. I agree with you. The official numbers. I'm not quite sure the official numbers tally up to the official number of people actually in the stadium. Maybe there were tickets, 40,000 of them for the opener, for example, sold, and those people didn't turn up. I'm not quite sure I believe some of these numbers, but on paper, I concur.
But whether you believe them or not, that's what the attendances are. But I know people that were at the stadium for the opening game, and they said what the crowd that was announced certainly marries up with what they saw at the crowd that night. There was 42,000 that filled the Khalifa Stadium last night for the Saudi game, 36,000 for Australia, India, 27,000 for Iran, Palestine. These are numbers, big numbers that we probably haven't seen in tournaments in the past that have been played in the Gulf. The UAE last time had much smaller numbers than that, smaller stadiums too, to be fair. So I think that's been pleasing. I think we thought when they're going to be playing in these World Cup stadiums that there might be a lot more empty than what they have been. So I've been pleasantly surprised, and hopefully that'll continue over the next days and weeks as well.
Yeah, and certainly the Saudi fans were out in numbers, and that's great. So you hope that kind of those teams that are drawing, the big crowds will be the ones that progress deep into the tournament. Let's switch to some nations that have impressed us. I'm going to throw out three to start with. For me, I was really impressed with Iraq. I think they're, I said to you before, I'm getting kind of 2007 vibes off this Iraq team. Very, a really exciting team. Some good kind of experienced players, even guys that are in their mid-20s, but still with a lot of caps, and particularly up front, that can do a lot of danger. And I think some of the work in midfield was superb as well. We'll get on to my player of the first round in a minute. I've got a new crush, Paul. This Amir Al-Amari, this Iraqi central midfielder, Lordy, what a player he is. But I thought Iraq were good. I thought Qatar were impressive as well in the opening game. But I think the real standout has been Iran for me. Consistent, impressive, dominant right across the pitch. And I think they laid down an early marker, not even with a guy like Azmoun starting and having to come off the bench. Paul, coming back to you, which nations have caught your eye over these first round of matches?
I agree with all of those. I'm going to frame mine slightly differently and look at a team that's impressed me in the context of what my expectations were for them going into the tournament, and that's Indonesia. I know they didn't win the game, but coming into this tournament, their lead-up form had been poor. They got smashed 5-1 by Iraq only a couple of months ago, and then backed it up with a draw against a pretty average Philippines team. They lost twice to Libya and got thumped by Iran as warm-up matches as well. So I was really worried how they were going to go in this tournament. I thought they might get, beaten pretty heavily by Iraq and some of the other teams in that group, and that still may eventuate. But against Iraq, they gave as good as they got in that game, and they landed a few punches. Obviously, Marcelino scored the goal. He hit the woodwork inside the first few minutes as well. And there are a couple of other bits of play in there as well where they really prized open the Iraqi defense and just probably lacked that little bit of sharpness and quality to really finish it off. But I thought they were super impressive against Iraq. And the goal that they scored, I think it was mentioned in commentary as well. It wasn't just sort of a hopeful ball forward that they've managed to get on the end of. It was the way they played through that Iraqi press and were able to play through Iraq to score a well-worked goal. For me, super impressive. And it's their age profile as well. They're the youngest team at the tournament. And I was looking at their starting 11 in that game today, had an average age of 22, which is younger than you'd see in some youth tournaments almost. They had 8 players in that starting 11 that were 22 or younger, which is just staggering. When you look at what that could mean for them going forward, this team under Shin Tae-yong, it bodes well for their future. So as I said, in terms of the context of what I was expecting coming into the tournament, they've been the most impressive for me.
Yeah, I think they found some diamonds in the rough with the diaspora guys that they brought in, Jenner and Hubner. Hubner, I understand, is basically a central defender, but played the first half as a 6 and then dropped back into that 3-man backline in the second half. I agree with you. I think it's a team that's building nicely for the future. I don't know that they're in a position to do a great deal here. I still have some kind of quest. I'm not sure that Rafael Struijk is the answer up front. I don't know if they have a 9. Jakub Sayuri's basically a wing back, was playing, as one of the 10s in the first half until Witan came on. So as promising as Marcelino is, I just don't know if they have the kind of real creativity or experienced creativity in that front 3 that they're playing. Of course, vital positions that you need to be. I agree with Marcelino as an excellent player and one for the future. And yeah, the 2 guys in central midfield, the 2 European-born guys, I think are also fine players. So I concur with you on Indonesia. I think they could be a really good team, certainly at regional level, in the next Mitsubishi, AFF, Suzuki, Electric, Panasonic Cup, whatever they term it at that time. Gabe, for you, impressive nation/nations?
Yeah, no, I agree with all that has been said. I think in terms of the real contenders, like you mentioned, Scott, Iran, Qatar both started really well. Obviously, with stronger tests to follow. And then Paul mentioning Indonesia, they were really exciting. I think another team that perhaps maybe weren't faced with the strongest opening test, but Thailand last night, I thought was, there have been question marks about how they would fare without Chanatip, with Tirasin. Even like, if I'm thinking further back with Kevin in goal, he's been such a formidable goalkeeper. He hasn't been around the national team for a long time now. And yet I think they really answered the first test. You can only beat what's in front of you, to throw out another cliche that we were talking about footballing cliches earlier. So yes, the fact that they managed to overcome that first test, looking really comfortable with those 3 young attackers in Super Choi, Supernat, and Super Chok really combining well, which is what we've sort of come to expect from them. I think looked really good, especially with tougher tests to come, obviously. 2 games coming up that will be far tougher than the first one they had. So it will be interesting to see what Thailand do and what Thailand can achieve at this tournament.
Yeah, and I think also bearing in mind the coaching change, which was unpopular in a large number of quarters, came very, very late. They came off this thrashing in Japan on New Year's Day, and then I believe they had a draw with their own Olympic team as well. So and arrived on the opening day of the tournament. So the preparation were and there was bags of something or other being handed out at the airport by Madam Pang as well. We don't know what was going on there. So I think there were legitimate questions about Thailand, and I can go with. I was actually kind of pleasantly surprised. I don't know why Kritsada didn't start, but it's one for another day. Paul, in terms of the other end of the spectrum, some of the big guns that we expected to maybe lay out an early marker, Australia, scratchy performance, Japan struggled at parts, certainly a lot of issues defensively and in goal particular, and Korea maybe weren't as slick as we expected either. Were you disappointed by any of those couple of nations, any other disappointments, or is this just kind of feeling your way into the tournament and things will grow from there?
I think mostly the latter. I mean, you don't win the tournament in your first game. You've got to build up. You generally build up over, hopefully 7 games for a lot of these teams. So, or at least 2 of these teams. So I don't think there's anything necessarily to be concerned about yet at this point for those nations. Certainly they would have liked to have played better. I'll come to you in a sec on Japan. But certainly from an Australian point of view, I mentioned it before in our preview that I was concerned about the lack of creativity and being able to play through a low block. And I don't think those questions have necessarily been answered against India. I think we struggled at times to break through what was a really resilient effort from India. I think the likes of Sandesh Jingan were sensational in that game, but I think there were more questions for Australia coming out of that than there were going into it. I'd like to see Riley McGree, Jordan Boss come in for the next game. I thought when they were brought on by Graham Arnold, they added something to the Australian side that they didn't have before that, a little bit more creativity, a little bit more spark in the final third. That was those two that combined for the second goal as well. So it'll be interesting to see how Australia get on against Syria. Syria were a bit more defensive against Uzbekistan as well, but they're going to offer a lot more going the other way with the attacking threats that they have, more so than India. So that's going to be a greater test for Australia. It'd be interesting to see whether Syria adopt that same kind of defensive mentality that they did against Uzbekistan. So I'll be fascinated to see how Australia get on. But yeah, interested in your thoughts then on Japan, because you spoke about it as well on the preview, that the concerns you had in goal and defensively as well. And I think that was borne true in that first half performance against Vietnam. It was true what you said, basically, that they will have enough in attack probably to get past most teams, but the concerns are still there. What do you think now, having seen their first up performance?
Yeah, I mean, I think similar to what you touched on with Australia, they struggled at points to break Vietnam down, but they had the quality to do it. Even Minamino, I mean, missing a lot of players, obviously, as well in the front third. I mean, I guess Ayase Ueda is the first choice striker. He didn't start. Mitoma didn't start. Kubo didn't start. So of the kind of real game changers, they weren't there, but the backup guys did really. I don't know what Ritsu Doan has done to anybody, by the way. What a brilliant player, but he can't, even when there's 14 other injuries, he still can't get a start. Look good off the bench again, of course. But so they do have that creativity and the game changes to make those moments. We saw 2 very well taken goals by Minamino. But yeah, as we touched on, as he said, in the preview stuff, the issues are defensively. I'm still not sure that, honestly, either of these guys are really good fullbacks. Defensively, there's still issues. But yeah, the one glaring area is the goalkeeper position where, Zion Suzuki was the third choice keeper at Reds, a year ago. He's now Japan's starting keeper. And the backups, I mean, I know Maikawa had a good season with Kobe, won the J League, but the third choice, this guy Taishi Brandon Nozawa, I'm not sure he's J6 level. I mean, he couldn't get on the bench for FC Tokyo this year, and now he's in the national team. And I'm pretty sure the coaching staff were also a little bit surprised that he was the Tokyo coaching staff were a little bit surprised that he was in the national team as well. So it's a huge issue, and I don't know why, because Japan has keepers. I mean, Ryosuke Kojima from Niigata is a brilliant keeper, a modern keeper, great with his feet. He's been in and around a few camps, but not in the squad. And for me, the best keeper in the J League is Park Il-gyu, formerly of Marinos, now at last year at Tosu, on the move this year. But again, I wonder why he's not there. I mean, he's one of these what they call his Zainichi, ethnic Koreans, but grew up in Japan. Only, I believe, got his Japanese citizenship 2 years ago. So I don't know if there's anything going on behind the scenes, but he's easily the best eligible keeper for Japan. The second best is Kojima. Neither of those are even in the squad, so I don't know why. And again, this is a Moriyasu issue, I think, because he tends to not pick players outside of, well, he's done picking no one outside of J1, and he doesn't pick players domestically outside of the big clubs. So yeah, for me, it's a surprise. It was a surprising squad selection to start with. And it was a debacle. We were debating whether the first Vietnam goal, the header was intentional or not. I think it was an accident. You think it was intentional, and then certainly, the second goal, he was really at fault for as well. So what does Moriyasu do now? Does he stick with him, try and build up the confidence, or does he go? I'm assuming Maikawa is the backup option. Interesting times ahead for Japan. Gabe, coming to you on Korea, one of the other, I guess, not disappointing, but maybe they didn't quite live up to the high standards that we set for them, but they were saved by an absolute masterclass from Lee Kang-in. What did you make of him in particular? There's so much talk and expectation going into the tournament that he's the kind of boy wonder with the mantle to Son's title. It certainly lived up to that expectation. What did you make of him and Korea generally?
Yeah, I think we've been sort of expecting him to come good. I mean, I know he's still really young, but we're just coming through the ranks of Valencia at the age of 16 when he first started getting noticed. I think there's been a lot of expectation and hype surrounding him, and I think we've seen a lot even before this Asian Cup. I look back to the last World Cup, and I think before that there was a lot of rumors about Paulo Bento not being happy perhaps with his application or his fitness levels, and he was a genuine game changer, and he couldn't get into the starting 11. And then when he did, in that game against Portugal, which they won to get through to the knockout round, he really proved that he was a class above almost everyone else bar Son Heung-min. So what we saw from him on that opening game of the Asian Cup, I think you sort of expect that from him, but yet it was good to actually see him firstly get the chance under Jurgen Klinsmann to have an influence from the start, from the opening whistle, and then for him to actually deliver in a game where Son actually was well nullified by the opposition. I think they double, triple, even quadruple teamed him at times. So for South Korea, I think to actually have a quality, not backup, but alternative that looks like he can be at a world class level, I think bodes really well. But overall, I think perhaps like Paul said, it wasn't all about starting that emphatically. I guess just a win was probably enough for these teams. And then looking to build some momentum rather than starting strongly and then sort of hitting your peak too soon.
So as we said, there were no goals on the night for Son Heung-min, although he did miss a sitter that was put on a platter for him from Kang-in, but he did speak afterwards, and this is what he had to say.
Yeah, it was a tough game as we expect. There is never an easy game, and in Bahrain obviously prepared really well, and it was tough to break, but especially when we go up 1-0, and obviously we have to do better stuff. But I think the win is the most important thing is that we won the game, and we move on because this next game is quite coming really quick. It is something special. It's 2011 Asian Cup. It was my first major tournaments, and coming back in Qatar, having fourth Asian Cup, it is something special. And I also want to make a special Asian Cup for myself and for our country. So it's going to be a long journey, so we just want to focus the game by game and make it special as possible. No, you can't compare any team 2011, 2015 or 2019 and 2023 or 24. We say there's no you can't compare, because it's the football generation change and the football style change in a year. So look, I mean, we're having a fantastic team player, and we're having amazing talent players. So, but it's all about commitment, and so look, I think we had an unbelievable team, but we haven't won it for 64 years. So it means it's quite a long. So as one thing, we have just one name that make it special with this team and make it special. Yeah.
Yeah, so Gabe, coming back to you, one of the other talking points from that game was the amount of yellow cards that Korea picked up, 5 in their opening game, including Son and Kim Min-jae, which of course puts them at risk of suspension. If they pick up another, the slate doesn't wipe clean until after the quarterfinals. So they have to play it careful now. We're going to get on to Jurgen Klinsmann in a minute, but is that an issue for Korea? I mean, is there concerns with discipline, or it was just one of those games?
I think it's one of these games, and I know we're going to get onto Jurgen Klinsmann shortly. I don't know what he's complaining about. If anyone that watched that game, I mean, those were yellow cards, and all that talk about it's too early to give a yellow card. I mean, a yellow card's a yellow card, whether it's in the first minute or the 90th minute. Right? I mean, so I really don't know what he was on about the referee, and he had a few complaints about the referee. I think, but getting back to your question, Scott, yes, probably not ideal for South Korea, but again, you also don't want your players, not to go in for a challenge. If they should be going in for challenges, they should be asserting their authority. And if it just happened to be a poorly timed challenge and they pick up a booking, I think fair enough. So I don't think overall such a big issue, but yeah, it's not going to be ideal for South Korea. And if anything, he should be furious at his players and not the referee for showing too many yellow cards.
Yeah, he's dive into regional politics. He's picking a fight here. So let's get on and have a listen to what Jurgen Klinsmann did have to say.
But it was a tricky game, and it had a lot to do with the Chinese referee giving too many yellow cards too early. And that forced us coaches to think through that process, and that's why I took off Min-jae, and also Ki-jae, because we feel if they do even a slight little foul, which is normal to do, fouls is part of the game, then they get sent off. So that forced us to react and to be attentive to that. Now we obviously had too many yellow cards in the first game, and this is something that we have to think about. We have to also do it better, but I thought they exaggerated a little bit with giving the cards out too easy.
All right, so switching focus now, Scott, I want to come to you on Malaysia. We've spoken about a couple of the Southeast Asian nations already. Malaysia are one that did really struggle in that game against Jordan, got opened up quite a bit. Interested to get your thoughts on what you made of their performance. They were one team that looks like they've really struggled so far. Did you see it the same way?
Yeah, I think they were poor. One of the poorest performances at the tournament. I think not in terms of the technical capabilities of the players. I know there's a lot of talk. They played a high line. This, of course, in itself is not an issue, but for me was the organisation of it. There was a back three that I think players. I'm not sure what. I don't think Matt Davies is a right-sided centre back in a back three, and the line was jagged. So you can be high, but you're high and organised. It's one thing. You're high and disorganised. It's another, and that was the case. And then I think just the organisation of the team generally. I don't think the team or the composition of the players, the way that he had them structured, I don't think he's getting the best out of them. You play three like that, then you're forcing Davies into a more infield role. And then what are you doing on the right? You've got Faisal Halim and Arif Ayman, both kind of then playing on the right. One has to kind of drop back into a right wing back role. One's in a more advanced role. They were kind of switching positions. So I don't think he maximized the talent that he had within the side. And I think the organisation out of possession was a real worry for them. And any time you're playing three at the back, you're naturally limiting the numbers that you've got in the more advanced creative roles. And two of the most creative players, he's kind of shoehorning them into positions where I don't think they're comfortable. And like Arif for a large part of that game was playing as a right wing back, asked to track back and do defensive work. It's not what the hell he's in the team for. So I think most of the blame for this defeat has to lie at the feet of Kim Pang-gon. And yeah, I'm not sure tactically what he was thinking and whether now there's going to be a reaction to that and we'll see something different in the second half. But I don't think the way that he set the side up allowed them to maximise the talents that he had in the squad. It was really disappointing coaching, and it's up to him now to do something to try and reconstruct that for the second game.
You mentioned Kim Pang-gon there. He spoke after the game about his disappointment. Let's have a listen to what he had to say.
It was a very tough time second half. I think 3-0 because player also didn't expecting this kind of result. I think even should be player side more disappointed. Actually, they never performed like this last 2 years.
Coming to you also then, Gabe, on Malaysia, just to round out that discussion on the Southeast Asian nations. Scott said very disappointing performance. You would have seen a lot of them over the last couple of years under Kim Pangon. They've been quite impressive since he's taken charge. How disappointing was this performance from them, and what does it mean then for the rest of their campaign now?
Yeah, Paul. It was very disappointing because you like you mentioned rightly so that he has been gaining a lot of credit for himself in over the time he's been in charge, and especially with the last two World Cup qualifiers that they played. I know it wasn't the strongest opposition, but they did well to win both games and be top of that World Cup qualifying group. So you come into the Asian Cup and you do sort of have a certain level of expectation. Obviously, returning to the tournament for the first time since 2007 as well. We know how crazy fans the Malaysian faithful are. So they would have been expecting a lot too. They deserve something to smile about. So I think if they had sort of battled hard and gave a good account of themselves and then lost 4-0, I think it wouldn't have been as bad as conceding 3 goals within the first 32 minutes, looking completely shell shocked, looking completely off the pace. And as Scott mentioned, it looked like the players were at fault, but in actuality, they were probably following a game plan that they weren't well prepared enough for, or they didn't quite understand, and that's why they looked completely lost at sea. So overall, it was very disappointing, and it just puts them on the back foot right from the get-go. So in terms of what they can salvage from the campaign, I know we've heard a lot of people saying that 3 points probably could be enough to get you to the knockout round because the third place teams do qualify as well. At the moment, I don't see them getting 3 points anywhere, and I think really they do need to drastically change. But obviously, as someone who really wants to see Southeast Asian football go far at this tournament, I still hope things can turn around. And as Scott mentioned, I thought there is quality. Arif Aiman is quality, but he can't be playing as a right wing back. So there is still reason for optimism. But if anything, they should just be looking to get 2 more creditable performances out of their campaign. Really prove that, like Indonesia showed, that even in defeat they do belong on this stage. I think that would be a good way to rectify a almost disastrous opening day performance.
Paul, just before we go, I just want to come to you with any individual performers that you've been impressed with. I'm only doing this because I want to talk again about Amir Al-Amari, who I think is a hell of a player. And I know he was at fault in a way for the penalty, but I thought Amir Hassan Al-Tambakti was what this guy is doing still playing in Saudi Arabia is anyone's guess, because I think he's the hands down for me, and I include other big names in this, hands down the best defender anywhere in the continent, and he wouldn't look out of place whatsoever stepping into a Premier League team, for example. So for me, they were the two real, I know they're kind of not the sexy positions and they're not ones that are getting the goals and stuff, but the work that they did for their team, man, this Al-Amari, man, this guy's like the little shadows, in nighttime when you open a cupboard and the light's half on and it's on the floor. This guy, man, he's working in these spaces. What an absolutely gem of a player in Al-Tambakti as well. Paul, for you, anyone, I know you're going to say Lee Kang-in, you can't say him. Say someone else that didn't score goals and stuff.
Oh, why can't I say Heung-min? He was fantastic. I'll go with 2 players at opposite ends of the park then to follow on with your defensive minded players. I thought Sandesh Jingan against Australia was really, really good. Led that defense, Indian defense, and finished the game with a bandage on his head, which told you everything about the effort and what he gave to the Indian cause. I thought he was fantastic. He's a player that I've long admired, interviewed him before, and I think he's a fantastic person as well. So he was really good. And you mentioned Qatar off the top, Akram Afif. He dazzled us all in 2019. He was sensational in that opening game. I still think he's got another level or two to get to. There was still a couple of mishit passes along the way that, ordinarily at his peak, at his best, he'd be hitting those passes. But we saw enough flashes of the best of Akram Afif to suggest that he could be on for another big tournament here. So there are a couple, but I'll let you go. Let you go on your friend, your Iraqi friend, AAA. What did you like so much about his performance?
Well, he's not my friend just yet. He will be my friend. Don't you worry about that. Gabe, for you, any standout individual performers?
Yeah, there have been. I mean, we've seen so many players, so they have to be. So I think, like, just fresh off the top of my head, from last night, even though they didn't win, like, Oman put up such a performance, and I think Salah El Gaye was outstanding. He was just they all were, but he looked a class above. And I guess another one that comes to mind is Musa El Tamari. Or we obviously know, playing in Europe, he's of a certain quality, but he just looked effortless. And then one more I like to mention is someone, like, we know Iran's star-studded team. One man that probably isn't in that level but is hoping to reach there is Mehdi Gaedi, and I think he's not an automatic. I don't think he's going to be an automatic selection throughout the tournament. I think his place is up for grabs, but he didn't do himself any harm. He was really exciting down that left flank, so I really like what we saw from him as well.
To finish, Paul, let's come to you on Saudi Arabia. But before we get there, let's listen to a bit of audio here from Roberto Mancini.
I think that you have to ask to them, because all of these players didn't want to come with the national team. They decide, not me. They were in the list, all of these players, and Salman, the first time in the camp, he said that he doesn't want to come to play for the friendly game. I don't think that one player can decide when or not can come. Second is Sultan and Nawaf. I spoke with both before the list, and I asked them if they were happy to come in the national team. And Sultan told me that he was not happy, that, I play or I don't come. Okay. There is no one player that can decide if I have to play or not. I decide this. And he decided to didn't come. Nawaf told me that, okay, I come, but the day after, in Riyadh, said to us, not, I don't want to come. We tried to speak with him, and we put him in the list. We were in the camp in Sea Line, and 3 days ago, he went to our goalkeeper coach. I said that, no, I don't want to stay here, because if I not play, I will not want to stay. No one knows the first 11 for tomorrow, and I don't know why he decided this, but I want with me only players that want to fight for his country. I don't want players that are not like, and they decide to leave. This is the reason. And now finish about this, okay? I don't want to talk about Salman, about Sultan, about Nawaf, okay?
Yeah, so Paul, picking up off the back of that, what were your thoughts on what Mancini had to say, and just general thoughts overall on the Saudi showing?
It was a remarkable press conference, wasn't it? I mean, we've sat in enough pre-match press conferences to know they're pretty dull affairs most of the time. Most players and coaches are pretty well trained now to say nothing at all. So that Mancini came out with that as his opening salvo in that press conference. To me, it was deliberate. He knew that question was going to come, and he deliberately put that out there. I think pretty much, I'm guessing, as a line in the sand to the squad, to let everyone know that these are the expectations. This is what has happened. And of course, the players have denied what he said, but this is what has happened. These are the expectations, and this is what I expect going forward, laying down the marker that he is the one that's in charge and nobody else. And I thought for 24 hours before that game, it really sort of created an atmosphere of negativity around the Saudi team. And for how long was it? 60, 65 minutes. It looked like it could have, fully backfired on them. Had they lost that game to Oman, you could easily see sort of splinters starting to develop. But they were able to turn it around. They were able to get the win. And it's kind of amazing how sort of a win cures all ills now. There's an air of positivity back around Saudi Arabia, a little bit like we spoke about with the other big nations. I don't think it was their best performance by any stretch, but they were able to do what they needed to do to get the job done. I think the introduction of Abdurrahman Gabe changed the game in the second half. He was superb when he came on. His little mazy dribble to score the opener was simply superb, probably one of the goals of the tournament, and it was his corner as well that set up the winning goal right at the end of the match as well. He's had a brilliant season Al Nasser, and he continued it in. And Ali Al Balahi, we were talking about this off air, scored the winner, and then went and did his now famous balloon celebration in the corner. I mean, he's a player that you either love or hate. He's that really niggly defender that gets in your face. We saw him get in the face of Messi. He's done it to Ronaldo in the Premier League, the Saudi Pro League. He's had his planting the flag celebration in the domestic league before. Now he's got this balloon that he's going on with. So he's not everyone's cup of tea, but I kind of like it. I think we need personalities and characters in Asian football. People that someone do love to hate. So more of it, I say. Hopefully we see more of those antics throughout the tournament, because I think it's absolutely brilliant. But they got the job done, but they'll certainly need to improve over the next few games.
All right, guys, we could go on for hours, but we'll save some for next time. We get more Al Murray talk next time, I promise you that. So that is where we will leave things for today. Gabe, a big thanks for joining us after yet another all-nighter.
Thank you very much, and so much more to look forward to. So I hope we all continue enjoying the excellent show.
Absolutely. Paul, thanks again.
Cheers, mate. Look forward to doing it next time.
Likewise. And before we go, please don't forget to follow us on all our social media channels by searching The Asian Game to ensure you don't miss a thing from this Asian Cup, and jump on our website for some fantastic stories and features from the tournament as well. We'll be back shortly with another show, but until then, it's bye for now.